Hey, what's up? It's Bond. Let's talk about Mass Effect. This will be my kind of final big wrap up definitive video on the 2022 Mass Effect in 7-day. I'm going to talk about everything that we learned fairly quickly, and then some of the things that I wasn't able to cover on Tuesday, and then some bits of speculation and some things that are kind of floating around, as well as my kind of general thoughts on in 7-day this year, where I think things are going, and how long I think it'll be until we find out more. Please subscribe to this channel if you want more Mass Effect videos. I'm going to be doing a bunch of this stuff over the next few years. I would really appreciate it. I am trying to kind of establish myself here, so if you would please join me, I would very much appreciate it. Okay, let's look at the blog. So we've talked a lot about this. The big things we found out here is that the game is still in pre-production, as they point out here. They have veterans coming back to the franchise. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. They also have a bunch of new people working on the game. That is exciting because the game's been out so long that people who played this when they were like teenagers or young adults are now like older adults who are established in their careers and are working on this series that they love so much. So that's super cool, and should give an interesting take on the next game. We know about Mike Gamble, who's who's the project director. We have Mary DeMarley as the senior narrative director. Parrish Lay, who's been who I think was the cinematic director of Mass Effect 3 in some of the trilogy. The news that we got here, at least news for me, was that Daniel Innes is the development director. As of Sunday, the day before, that job was still listed on their page. It's now gone. There are no Mass Effect jobs listed on the BioWare career website, which is a big difference from a year ago. A year ago, they had 8 or 9 or even maybe 10 listings, and like I think 7 of them were director jobs. Those are all filled now, and that is very exciting. That means things are happening. That means that they can make big strides in the prototyping and the conceptual work and fleshing out and finishing the story. Having all of those directors in place is probably why we've gotten multiple vague tweets from Mike Gamble saying, oh, we had a great meeting today where everyone showed everything and it looked awesome. Or just recently he posted, we did something today I've been waiting years to do. That's because they have all these directors and they're building the teams underneath that as they prepare for Dreadwolf to release and all of that bulk of developers to come over and start working on Mass Effect probably next year. And then we came down to this. So we have a little message here from Mike Gamble. There wasn't really anything that significant here. The big news here was this image down here and a attached video that has become quite the source of speculation and other things. And we will get to that here in a moment. But this blog is great. I think it gave some really good info. It didn't say too much or too little. When this first came out, I was like, okay, this is about what I expected. And then we started diving into stuff. So starting at the top of the blog, actually this picture is one of the first things we see. And there's plenty to see when you really start looking into it. So things that I noticed, I think this looks a lot like Ilium. I think the red haze is interesting. It may indicate that it's maybe a new planet. Maybe something's happened on Ilium. Maybe the effects of the Reaper War have polluted the city or something. I don't know. I think it's notable that these transportation vehicles in the Sky Cars look very trilogy-ish, like exactly the same. We'll talk a lot about the time frame that the next game may be set in, but there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this game takes place 100 years after the trilogy, 500, 600, 1,000 years later. If that was the case, I wouldn't expect to see Mass Effect like trilogy looking vehicles, especially not ones that look exactly the same. One small note here is on this vehicle, if you can't read it yourself, it says STX. That kind of goes along with some other stuff that we've seen of referencing back to prototypes and things like that. There is also a upside down Omega symbol here, which I don't really know what to make of that. Maybe this is Omega, I'm not sure. I would actually predict that maybe in after the war, once Omega rebuilds, they may kind of spread out and become kind of a corporation, and Arya maybe tries to spread their influence a bit by becoming kind of like an established business or something like that. There's also down here an Asari on a billboard. This is what makes me think it probably is Ilium, because Ilium's kind of the financial hub home world for the Asari, but we'll have to wait and see. This was kind of a thing that I didn't see many people talk about in the immediate aftermath of everything. This, if we look here by the merchandise, this favorite store in the Citadel, someone pointed out, I think it was on Reddit, that this is new art for the Citadel. Multiple people looked through all the art books and all that and didn't find this. So this looks like new art. What's interesting to me about it is that the Citadel is fully intact. It has there's a something out here. If this is supposed to be the Citadel after Mass Effect 3, you would think that this is in orbit around Earth. This could be the moon, or it could be Earth, I guess. You also do see a ship here with a kind of a trail behind it. Some people did point out that this has that kind of cloudy glow around it that the Citadel has before it's moved to Earth in Mass Effect 3. And so maybe this is old concept art that we just haven't seen before or we're forgetting. But I still think it was worth pointing out, especially because I think this kind of celestial body here, I don't believe was in art that I've ever seen for the trilogy Citadel pre the finale of Mass Effect 3. But I don't know, let me know what you think. This is obviously the belle of the ball. This is actually a video that you can watch. It basically just has these ships are all just moving a little bit. There's a ship here on the right that everyone thinks is the Tempest or Normandy or something else, depending on what game you hope this takes after. You can't see it because I'm covering it with my big dumb head. Here, I will hide myself. This down here is interesting for sure. It's initially people thought that it was kind of giving the information about this ship. What we know now, which I'll confirm here in the next thing, is that this video we see as part of this preview is actually surveillance happening on this relay that is under construction, or supposedly a relay. Here it's called a vacuum dock relay. There's been lots of speculation that means that, oh, this is a relay that they're going to use to shoot us to Andromeda, and that's how they're going to cross over the games. I mean, maybe. What I'm guessing is that this is going to be something, my guess is that this is going to be a relay that maybe isn't as powerful or can't travel as far or whatever as like the Reaper built relays, but that it's kind of a technology that's going to get used while they rebuild the relay network and so on. There's multiple things here though. So here it says vacuum dock relay construction record. So we're assuming this is the vacuum dock relay. Monitoring station operated by Green Dagger Limited. So it's assumed that is referencing that this image is coming from a surveillance station or something. It's property of Deep Space Dehao SAV. People believe this is the Systems Alliance vehicle, and that the ship captain is Sub Navark Soral Zillion Jones, which people are referencing pretty heavily that it could be a Quarian, or like a Quarian who's married to a human or something like that. And then down here in the bottom, we have a few things that may be clues as well. The 314 relay is, I believe, either where the First Contact War or the Rachni spread from. But this is probably at least interesting in some capacity. We also have what appears to be a date here. That's 11/7, an obvious reference to N7 Day, and then 90. Depending on what you want from the next game, people are saying that they think the 90 is 2190, which is just a few years after Mass Effect 3. Maybe it's a clue to when the game is going to take place. But then people are saying, well, it doesn't have 21, so maybe it's 2590 or 3190. Who knows? I am speculating 2190, again going back to reference the fact that these ships and this technology looks very trilogy-y, and that this doesn't look like technology that is 100, 500 years advanced past what we already know. Now, the last tidbit I will throw out there, even though I don't want to really, is that there is something interesting about these ships. These ships appear to very much resemble some of the very early concept art for the arcs in Mass Effect Andromeda, where you have the fuselage as kind of this tube, and then in the back the 4 kind of wings that are kind of like that open like backwards basically. People have talked a lot about this on the subreddit and stuff, and that tech has a name. It's like OCBY or something, and it's the tech they used to get the arcs to Andromeda in only 600 years without the use of mass relays, because otherwise, like with FTL, it would have taken way longer. And so some people are predicting that these aren't arcs. They seem way too small to be arcs. So that maybe in the post Reaper War universe, the same tech that was used for the arcs gets used in ships that need to travel through the Milky Way without the mass relays, and that they could potentially cross the entire galaxy in about a month using this technology rather than FTL or slower methods. And so I think this probably indicates that the Initiative will have a presence in the Milky Way after the war. I've talked a lot about it before, but it's very likely that not all of the Milky Way, that not all of the Initiative staff and infrastructure left the Milky Way. A lot of it probably stayed behind, I believe, including the mysterious benefactor. And so when people have asked about how could they connect the next game to Andromeda without actually including Andromeda, I think learning more about the Initiative and its leadership and its funding and how it's involved in things could be a pretty huge part of that. So this tweet here is interesting. So along with this picture was a kind of a distorted noise in the background, and people were able to decipher it and figure out that it's Liara speaking and maybe someone else. And so what Liara says is, although they should know not to underestimate human defiance. And she also says a few other things that are a little harder to decipher. Now, what I am going to propose is that because this is surveillance footage of this mass relay being built, I suspect that the audio from Liara is being captured because she's being listened in on by someone. And then there's another being involved in this conversation with Liara. People have been from the get-go saying that it's the Geth. I don't think so. I think that if they are picking up on one of her communication channels, the person she's speaking to is probably has their connection encrypted, and so maybe they're able to hear what Liara is saying, but the other person is coming over as like garbled speech. There are a pretty significant number of people who genuinely believe that the other voice, you can hear bits of it, and people are absolutely convinced it's Jennifer Hale's voice. I don't know. I don't hear it, but I don't know. It does sound like two different voices. It doesn't sound like it's all Liara. So we'll have to wait and see. It could be all kinds of people. Maybe it's Shepard. Maybe it's the mysterious benefactor. Maybe it's someone that we don't know anything about yet. Maybe it is the Geth. I don't think it's the Geth because it's in that garbled speech, and when the Geth would speak to other beings, it would use translated language. It didn't just beep and bop at, to communicate. So that's just my take on that. This is also, I think, worth at least looking at. This is the old concept art that, this was obviously referencing. What's interesting about it is that if you compare them, I mentioned before that this new art looks very trilogy-ish. The ships, the cargo ships, just even the relay itself, doesn't look like hyper futuristic. It looks very kind of in the world of the trilogy, where this does look way more futuristic. And so, there's a chance that when this art was made, this art, I believe, was done around the same time, like shortly after Andromeda. There's also a bit of art of the Mud Skipper, the ship, where there's an Angara beside it. And I've seen people point to that and be like, oh, that means the next game is in Andromeda. But I think that art was done around the time of Andromeda. I believe this was as well. And I suspect that, what they're doing has probably changed since then. And so that's why I think that there is such a insane change in kind of the styling of this, because here, like on this one, you see all the old style ships, all the old style like cargo ships and stuff like that. Oh, can I hide that? Oh, perfect. On this one, these ships look way different than anything we've seen in the trilogy. These, in theory, could look more futuristic or something like that. Something of note here as well is this is one of the stretches that I think some people are making. That said, I can't completely, even though this isn't what I want. This is the Andromeda star formation. I believe it's the god Andromeda. I think the person who made this is being kind of convenient with what they're choosing to point out and not point out. They don't look exactly the same, but they are eerily similar. So while this isn't something I want to put too much belief into, I find it hard to deny that there isn't at least something kind of interesting there. So take that for what you will. I assume if you're an Andromeda fan, that is something that would excite you. Something to consider too is that when Mike Gamble posted and confirmed what Liara is saying in that audio, which I just realized, here he has Dr. Shadowbroker, Liara Tassoni, and Redacted. Yeah, I'm positive that isn't Geth. I'm positive that is someone whose voice is being modulated or hidden. We have this concept art as well. So I am like 99% sure this is Omega. And the main reason being, and a thing that a lot of other people have pointed out, that I'll have to see if I can get it on the screen here. There is a sign over here on the right that you can just barely see on my screen, and it's Solar Electronics. That is specifically a reference to one of the stores from Mass Effect 2 when you're on the Omega Hub world. Some more interesting things about this picture, in my opinion. Again, we have trilogy style sky cars all over the place here, and they're not even like a little different. They're exactly the same as the trilogy, which again, to me, suggests that we're in the same timeline as the trilogy. We aren't 100 years later, we aren't 500 years later, but that's just how I'm interpreting it. We have a Solarian and a Krogan and a Turian here. The interesting note about all of them is that they are all very clearly wearing breathing masks of some type. So wherever this is, whether it's Omega or somewhere else, it's kind of interesting that you have this hyper advanced technology and architecture and stuff, but the people there can't breathe the air. So something to consider, something to think about. This is the confirmation that Mike Gamble gave right here about confirming that this person here said, hey, it's a monitor distorting your watching, it's surveillance footage. And Mike Gamble confirms, yes, and maybe something else. I think the maybe something else is that what we're hearing from Liara is captured audio that she's not aware of. Someone is spying on her, monitoring her, surveilling her, either because she's the shadow broker or potentially for some other reasons. I will kind of go into it a little more. I'm wondering if that suggests that Liara is maybe in charge, or at least affiliated with this project of making this relay. And then that kind of sends us down a whole different rabbit hole of speculation and so on and so forth. So I will move on for the sake of expediency. So for some other kind of random things, I do think this was really interesting. Jess Hara Campbell worked on Andromeda and had been with BioWare before. I believe her partner was also with BioWare, but I believe they're with ZeniMax now, and that they still are. But she is returning to Mass Effect and BioWare to work on the next game. And the exciting part about that is that she is the mission director of the next game. You don't need a mission director if you aren't working on missions. And so I think a lot of times people think the pre-production process is just like sitting around talking about the game. The pre-production process, especially in the later stages, are making the base parts of the game so that when all the developers come to your project, they already have a scaffolding of what to make and to know how to make it. And, and for all intents and purposes, at the end of pre-production, hopefully your game is essentially done in concept, but then you need all these people to actually build everything. And so, them having someone on to start working on the missions, to actually nail down all of the little details of the things we'll be doing. That's a big deal. That's exciting. They wouldn't be doing that if things weren't moving along, which at the end of the day is what we all should be hoping for and excited about. And then the final thing is, I'll say again that they have a bunch of merch that they announced. I think there were like 4 or 5 more items. Yes, they did mislabel the Tally lithograph here as Liara. I don't know if what happens with the gear store sometimes is they show something that won't be out for a long time. So like maybe this should have actually been a thing of Liara, which would make sense with the teaser that we got. Or I don't know. I don't think they've clarified it yet. And, they run kind of a loose ship over there, it seems like. So I think we'll just we'll just wait and see about that. But overall, I thought this was a really, really, really good moment for BioWare and for the next game. They didn't give us that much, but they also gave us so much to think about and talk about and speculate on. Just like with the poster last year and even with the teaser trailer 2 years ago, I suspect we haven't figured everything out, that a lot of this is still kind of a mystery, and that's okay. Things that we won't really be able to confirm until the game actually comes out. We can look back at this stuff and say, oh, we were right about that, we were wrong about this. We'll have to wait and see. As for what I think the general thing is that they're hinting at here, I think that there's really good reason to believe at this point that the game is going to take place shortly after Mass Effect 3. I think even from this, they even in this blog, it says, the developers have been hard at work crafting new characters and locations that you'll love, as well as revisiting many that you'll remember. I think that we're going to see this game take place probably shortly after 3, that there's going to be involvement with previous crew members and people that we know of, but there's also going to be a big expansion into parts of the universe that we've never explored yet. I also believe that they are going to figure out a way to include Andromeda. I really hope it's not magic time space wormhole travel. I really hope it's not some goofy way of trying to bring the Ryder twins back and the time travel or something. What I hope is that they expand on what the initiative is, the remains of the initiative in the Milky Way, how that impacts the galaxy, and also, starts to set the stage for, sending more stuff to Andromeda, getting to Andromeda, and, kind of being able to continue that timeline later. Gamble has made it pretty obvious that, they have not forgotten Andromeda, and that Andromeda will be a part of this game. but they also seem to also be giving us a lot of reason to believe this game isn't going to take place hundreds of years later, so that they can more realistically try to bring the two franchises together directly. I've seen people speculate about maybe we'll be playing two games essentially, one in Andromeda, another in the past in the Milky Way, and maybe they converge somehow. I kind of hope they don't do that. I would really like them to keep it simple, stupid, and be hyper focused on making this next game very good, in one universe, even if it has to be somewhere else. I find it really hard to believe, looking at all of this stuff that they're showing us, and not thinking that this is a game that takes place in the Milky Way, that probably takes place fairly quickly after Mass Effect 3, and that's kind of where we're going. It could all be a giant red herring. I have no idea. That's where I am going to start to wrap this video up, though. Down in the comments, please let me know what you think. Are there things I missed? Do you have different ideas? Do you agree? Please let me know down there. I would love to hear from you. This has been a long video. It needed to be a long video, and I think that's okay. So let me know what you think. Please subscribe to the channel for more Mass Effect videos. Please like this video so other people can find it. You can check me out on socials at Bondiesel on Twitter, as well as Bondiesel basically everywhere else, including twitch.tv/Bondiesel, where you can catch me streaming and probably talking about this for the next year. You can also finally catch my weekly gaming news podcast, the Echo Cast, which is on the all podcast providers, as well as this very YouTube channel. So you can look for that and hear my dulcet tones. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.